Well, greetings, my scattered sisters and brothers in the Lord. Today we continue on in this first chapter of the Gospel of John and Jesus calling his first disciples. In our text, it's actually the next day, and you'll recall everything that happened on that day before, where a couple of John's disciples start to follow Jesus, and Jesus says, "What are you seeking?" And John's disciples say, "Where are you staying?" And Jesus invites them. He says, "Come and see." And they go and they remain with Jesus for the rest of that day. And then Andrew, who is one of those two, he went and found his brother Simon, and he brought Simon to Jesus. And Jesus identified Simon before Andrew ever introduced him. "You are Simon, son of John. You will be called Peter." And we saw that Jesus already knew Peter, already knew Simon, had a new name for him, and in that new name, he had a new life for him. Well, now we're the next day, and Jesus is getting ready to head to Galilee, and Jesus finds Philip. And when he finds Philip, he tells Philip, "Follow me." And Philip immediately goes and finds Nathanael. And he tells Nathanael that we have found the Messiah. We have found the one that Moses wrote about, the one that the prophets testified to. We have found the Messiah, that it's Jesus, the son of Joseph from Nazareth. And Nathanael's response is, "Nazareth? Can anything good come from Nazareth?" And Philip says, "Come and see." The very same invitation that Jesus gave those first two followers, Andrew and his friend. And so Nathanael takes Philip up on the invitation, and he goes with Philip to see Jesus. And while he's still coming, Jesus sees him, and Jesus, before Nathanael's ever introduced to him, Jesus identifies Nathanael. And he says, "Behold, here is an Israelite in whom there is nothing false." And Nathanael says, "Well, how do you know me?" And Jesus responds that while you were under the fig tree, before Philip ever talked to you, I saw you. And when he hears that, Nathanael, he confesses that truly Jesus is the Son of God, that he is the King of Israel. And Jesus basically tells Nathanael that he believes because I said, "I saw you." Well, you're going to see a whole lot more than this. And you're going to see the heavens open, and you're going to see the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. And that's our text, this whole kind of next day of Jesus and Philip and Nathanael. There's a lot that we could talk about with all that, but there's a few things that I want us to pause over or settle in on. The first is the finding. So Jesus finds Philip, Philip finds Nathanael, and tells Nathanael that we have found the one that Moses wrote about, the one the prophets testified to. A whole lot of finding going on. And I think that that's pretty interesting that when we feel like we have finally found Jesus, the truth is that he has already found us. And then we go find people to bring to Jesus, but Jesus already knows them. And so just this mutual finding that goes on. One of the pictures that comes to my mind is when you have an adopted person who finds their parents, finds their family, finds relatives. And this sense of finding and this sense of belonging, that it's not simply this finding isn't just kind of informational finding, it's belonging finding. And so for Philip to testify to Nathanael that we have found the one, there comes with it this sense of belonging to that one. And that's kind of exciting when we start to think about, belonging to Jesus and belonging to Jesus' family, the fellowship that he has with the Father through the Spirit, again, becoming children of God. Finally finding the family that we belong to, and the family that we belong to finally finding us. So all of that finding going on. The next thing that I want to pause over is Philip's testimony to Nathanael. So he tells Nathanael, we have found the one, and Nathanael's really skeptical. Can anything good come from Nazareth? And at this point, he's not believing, but interestingly enough, he accepts the invitation and he goes with Philip to see Jesus. He does not become a believer in Jesus until Jesus speaks to him. Jesus telling him who he is, Jesus telling him that he saw him before Philip ever talked to him. He doesn't become a believer in Jesus until Jesus actually speaks to him and reveals that he knows him. And I think that is something for us to take hold of, that we can invite people to Jesus, we can invite, come and see, but what we're really counting on is the people becoming believers in Jesus, not because we have invited them, not because we have spoken to them or testified to them, but we recognize that they're really not going to become believers until Jesus speaks to them, until Jesus reveals himself to them, until Jesus reveals that he already knows them. And that's when they're going to make a decision for faith, make a decision to believe, when they discover that they've been found by the one who already knows them. So I hope that maybe encourages you, maybe sets you free a little bit more in terms of the invitation, maybe takes some of the pressure off in terms of converting somebody into a follower of Jesus, that it's going to be Jesus speaking to them that is going to bring about their confession, just like Nathanael's confession. Truly, you are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel. Nathanael makes the confession because of what Jesus said to him, not because of Philip's invitation to come and see. The invitation sure played a part in it, but he was skeptical until Jesus spoke to him. That's what we need to happen in our witnessing, that we invite, but we're counting on Jesus doing the speaking. That's where belief will come. There's more to this passage than we can cover in these few minutes. We may return to it this next time. Hope you have a great day. Hope you know that you have been found and that you belong. And may God give you grace, again, to find somebody, trusting that Jesus will speak to them in the process of your invitation to come and see. God bless.